right, you feel a bit lonely here because Idan and Ittai were supposed to be here, but too bad they can't be here. But so it's good actually because now we can talk about them as though they're not here. So
you get the truth, the honest truth.
Right. So I am truly intrigued by the kind of male friendships that can start businesses and then scale them and then sell them and then continue on to work in an already huge business, right? So I'm going to tell the story by chapters, right? Chapter 1, beginning of the bromance. How did you first meet?
We went, the three of us are Israelis, we went to the army together. So actually I met them for the first time when we drafted into the army, went to like a special unit. So I saw them 18, getting their hair shaved, getting all the vaccines, and off to the fields.
Okay. So nothing like getting to know a man when he's having his head shaved. Okay. So of the three, can we say, who's the fixer, who's the joker, who's the dreamer?
So the fixer is hard to say. I think each one of us has our own angle. We fix one another. That's why our partnership, I think, is so good. So I don't think there is one fixer. The joker, we're all pretty cynical people. But Idan is probably he has a level of his own.
He's a bit of the dreamer then.
So the dreamer is somewhere between me and Idan, mostly me. But you know what's more? I think I'm the dreamer. But when you have dreamers, you need somebody who's the stabilizer, And I think Ittai is the stabilizer. So I dream, but sometimes when you dream and reality doesn't work the way you think, then it shakes you. And Ittai will always be like, breathe, straight ahead, don't worry.
So it's good to have that equilibrium.
Yeah, there is an amazing balance between us. I'm super lucky to have these guys. They're my friends, family, business person.
Yeah, I know. So it's quite amazing, their friendship. So chapter 2, we go to starting Qlicka, right? So here's a picture of you guys starting Qlicka. Look at that, how young and innocent then.
Oh my God, look at my hair.
What was the most difficult thing about starting it up?
We were techies. We didn't know anything about doing business. So we just chose random ideas. And in hindsight, I'm just shocked that I'm here and not like... We had to pivot like 3. When I say pivot, it's not like, one leg. Jump 2 legs to something else. I think before we had something that had even a little bit of traction. So really just an idea. Yeah, a startup idea is hard.
Okay. Do you think, looking at the picture here, do you think you would have built anything different if there had been 1 or 2 women in the team?
I don't know if we would build something different, but we would build it better.
Okay. Chapter 3, the exit, right? So how was the first approach made, and what was the clincher that made you say, okay, we're going to sell it to Booking?
So we were, back in the days, we've been working, so we had a B2B company selling marketing services and mostly Google AdWords optimization. And we were working with Agoda as a customer, and we were talking with Booking.com a little bit, with Kayak a little bit, and then I was in New York City, raising a round from SoftBank before SoftBank even became SoftBank, the partner in New York City. I got a term sheet. I was so happy. I got a call from this guy, Glenn Fogel, whom I didn't know. And he was like, hey, can you come to meet us at Priceline? You're in New York. It's like Connecticut, 1-hour drive. And I was thinking, hey, I'm going to close another deal here. I know travel, we're pretty good. And then I step into a room, and it's Glenn Fogel, Jeff Boyd, who used to be the CEO, Brett Keller, who's the CEO of Priceline today. Back then, he was the CMO of Priceline. And a bunch of engineers. And I'm like, I'm coming with my sales pitch. And they were like, so talk to us about how you do caching. And I'm like, why do you want to know how I do caching? Talk about your tech. How do you do tech? Started asking, almost like IQ testing me. And I'm like, what's going on here? So I realized they're interviewing me for something else. And then really, 2 weeks later, I guess there was something happening behind the scenes between Agoda and Booking and Glenn. There was a conversation, but for me, it was that conversation. 2 weeks later, we got an LOI out of the blue, an email. Hello, this is what we think you're worth. We want to buy you. And
that was it. And you said yes immediately?
No, come on. That's not how the game is played. That's not how the game is played. No, I mean, we're struggling because first our investors were like, okay, you got a huge round from SoftBank. You got this giant wants to buy you. We're onto something here, right? And the last thing you do is sell. I think for us, The problem was back then, at least for me, when I looked at it, so we were an optimization business on top of Google AdWords. And when we started, again, we weren't very good business people. So when we started, we thought you can build $1 billion company there. And I think at that time, I realized it's not $1 billion company. So some VC is willing to give me a lot of money, but I need to pivot somewhere, along the way to build something bigger. And I could see the clouds coming. So I was like contemplating. My big fear was, so the investors were against. My big fear was like, oh my God, we're going to corporate. I'm gonna suffer now for 3 years. I'm such an entrepreneur startup guy. Idan was like, Omri, I don't care what you do, get it done. I was like, I don't care how. Get it done. Don't tell me, get it done.
All right. So you got it done. Tell me what was the transitioning to Agoda then, since you were scared of going into corporate. What was the monster you had to overcome?
So honestly, no monster. I was really, really lucky. I mean, I have so many friends with startups that got acquired and that they sit there and counting the days. I found an environment that was a good match to what I could bring to the table. And really, a leadership team, Rob Rosenstein, who was the CEO back then, they were just amazing, open, entrepreneurish, respectful. I learned so much. I didn't learn a lot of tech in Agoda. I think I taught, between me and my buddies, we brought a lot of tech to Agoda, a lot of talent and a lot of, so we taught the organization tech. But I think what I learned is leadership. You talked about empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy, being respectful, being open to change, being humble. All of those things. I learned how you can be a leader and yet have all those components from these guys. So super, super lucky.
All right. So we have a couple of family photos, and so is it hard to pull rank? You're the CEO, right? What happens when the wives or the kids fight?
So it's family by now. So it's like what happens when you have 2 siblings with kids and the kids fight, right? So our trick is that every parent hugs the kid of the other family. And tells them to calm down. I mean, they're really family by now. We're very lucky they get along, but, they fight at times. We try to solve it empathetically and respectfully.
All right. So what do you think are the 3 ingredients that's made Agoda successful so far since you took over?
So I'll give you one. Well, one I continued. I think Agoda was always, and it doesn't come from me, it comes from Rob. You can say he taught me. It's this relentless focus about price and marketing. Like best in the world. He would say, best in the world, best in the world. Every time he saw me, are we best in the world? Like that. Are we best in the world in price? Yeah, I don't know. So go get a better answer. So I think we maintained that as a DNA. And I think we brought 2 things that were missing to Agoda. One is tech as a pillar. Like we took the company from a business to a tech company, which you would say may cannibalize the business, but I think it did very, very well to the business, 1. And 2, we brought just talent. I think the biggest challenge for us joining Agoda is that we came from Silicon Valley, Israel. Like we're used to looking around us and people that are like getting you. And I think when we joined, there were definitely superstars in Agoda, but the average wasn't Silicon Valley stuff.
Okay.
And I think we spent almost 5 first years just making it a Silicon Valley stuff. And it means a lot of things. But once you're sitting on a Silicon Valley tech talent, then sky's the limit.
All right. So what's the most exciting thing that you're working on now, that Agoda is working on, that you truly believe will set it apart from the rest instead of same?
So I think we talk a lot about the connected trip, persistent trip, and I don't think we're the only ones doing that. In a nutshell, the concept is bringing a lot of travel verticals together. It's not only selling them separately, it's selling them to the consumer in a way that they package more and more items in, not necessarily at the same time, because dynamic packages existed forever. The idea is that you can add to the package. Consumers don't book everything at the same time. They book at different times. But you still want to give them this feeling that as they add products in, the price gets better. And you got to if you want to be successful, you got to not only convince the consumer, it has to be real. You cannot convince the consumer if it's not real, that the more they add to this dynamic time-independent package, the better the rate becomes. And I think nobody knows prices better than Agoda. I think Agoda can be the ones that does that. What I tell my team, by the way, that builds all the components that connect it together, the UX, and we're trying a lot of versions, I'm telling them, don't think about the consumer now, think about you. Are you convinced? Mm-hmm. Are you convinced when you go home, would you book with it? Because you're convinced 100%, no chance the price won't be better if you book separately. And the moment you're convinced, don't worry, it's going to be fine.
So it's like the concept of, like, say, I go to shop and then, they say if you buy this dress and then you buy this shoe, you buy this hat, you buy this bag, and then you get.
Yeah, but the trick is you want to buy the dress today, and you want to when you travel. Sometimes you book your flights or sometimes your accommodation. Some people, depending, it's very cultural. Some people will book their flight and not the accommodation. Some people, they don't fly, it's domestic. They buy a train ticket, they rent a car, and then the attractions, and there are payments components. What happens when you go to China? Good luck paying with your credit card, right? Okay. So you need somebody to help you with that. So all of those components, they are all the things that you buy when you travel. I think we want to be able to provide to the consumers, and the trick, they will buy it at different times.
Yep.
And the trick is that they need to know, they need to believe, because it's true, that as they put it together, not only it's more comfortable and we do the customer support for everything, that goes without saying. It's really, really cheaper. That's the key. And again, I think nobody knows cheaper like Agoda.
Cheapskate. Okay. We had to laugh, right? So we have a poll, and I'm going to ask you to speak to this. Because at WiT 2019, we asked the audience to predict what travel would look like, in 2029. And we collected 42 predictions, and these are the 3 predictions that I'm going to share. One is that AI will be like oxygen, it will be all mobile, and then no one will own my data. I will be a QR token, right? So make a prediction on what you think travel will look like in 2029.
So I'm a believer in the AI piece. Mobile, I don't know. I mean, obviously everything will be mobile. I just don't know what mobile means. I mean, it can be, Apple Vision Pro. Who knows? I think there will be a lot of I'm a big believer in augmented reality. So I'm a believer that there will be disruption. That these things will become something else. But AI, I'm a great believer. I think the AI story. Yes, there is a tech component to it that is evolving, but I think the big component is consumer education and trust. And I believe in assistance. What I mean is that if you look at how I book my travel ever since when I became a CEO, it brought me a personal assistant. I was like, what do I do with that? What does that? and gradually you learn that he or she, they learn you, and you trust them. It's about trust. First time I booked with the assistant, she brought me a lot of time. I'm like, what are you doing? I don't know. No, I'm not going there. I'm not going there. Second time, a little bit better. Fifth time, I didn't know what she's doing. She's like, go, do your thing. And I think...
This is a human assistant.
This is a human. This is a human. But computers can do that today.
Yes.
Computers can do... I'll tell you something, computer could do that 5 years ago. It's much easier today to do it, but models that are capable of doing a good job at that could do it 5 years ago, even 10 years ago. The problem is not the model, the problem is the trust. And I think what happens is that as AI becomes more mainstream and people are getting used to it, the trust element comes. That's why I think it's a long journey. The question is not tech. I mean, there's a tech component, but it's more the consumer education. And I think consumers will get there. And then the world will become, everybody will have their own personal assistant. And in the beginning, they'll ask, how do I use that?
Right.
And then after 5 times, they'll know.
So by 2029, everybody will have their own personal assistant whom they trust.
I think the disruption is not chat. The disruption is personal assistant on the consumer interfaces. On the consumer interface. That's my belief.
All right. So, I think last year we talked about AI as well, and you thought, okay, that AI might own creativity, right? But there's been research done by University of Montana that showed that AI can match the top 1% of human thinkers. Where do you think humans will have the edge?
Well, it's a matter of time. Eventually, nowhere. Doesn't mean that we will die. I don't know what happens to economy, but eventually, yeah. I guess 2 steps backwards. I think there are all sorts of machines. There are like, the computers. There are biological machines. I think, I'm a big fan of CRISPR. Eventually, I believe that even what's a human, what's a biological machine, will be completely programmable. Yeah, I think eventually, and there are combinations in between. So I think it's going to take time. I think today what you see, people look at generative AI like ChatGPT and all the others, and they think it's like a super machine that can do everything, but it's not. It's really a machine that can speak better than a human. But eventually, you think it will do everything better than humans can? I think you need to connect it with the math skills of other models. You need to connect it. There are all sorts of niche knowledge that the machine doesn't have yet, right? So
niche is good. So if you really stick to a niche.
Niche is good and non-repetitive. Everything that is repetitive. What I'm telling my kids is whatever you do, do something that is not repetitive, that you need to think and challenge yourself and reinvent yourself. If you do something that is repetitive, it's a matter of time. The time can be 50 years. And by the way, when it happens, it doesn't mean that you won't have a job. On the contrary, jobs will evolve, but not repetitive.
Interesting, because yesterday at the boot camp, we had students in the room, and a student asked, what skills do they need to really thrive in the age of AI, right? As students coming into the workforce. So you're saying, focus on something that's very niche and non-repetitive.
I say there is the famous David, what's his name? Kaman book, Thinking Slow and Fast. Mm-hmm. He talks about system 1, system 2. System 1 is like the intuition. System 2 is the one that we don't like to use that much because it hurts. Yeah. It's like we use a lot. Use system 2. All the time use system 2. If you find yourself on system 1, on the intuition, repetitive, then an AI will do that.
Right. So switch to system 2. Okay, I will take questions by my WhatsApp. 96924989 if you want to send me questions. Okay, so what do you think travel brands now have to do to prepare for the voyage to come in online travel?
Basically invest, but don't invest. I mean, in Asia we have this tendency that when the cost of capital goes down, then the investment becomes burning money. And you see that a lot. And we call it innovation, but that's not innovation. I met a VC once. He told me, with $3 billion, you can make. We were sitting in a restaurant. You can make this spoon a successful product. He was like, question is, can you do that with $10 million? and he's right. So burning money, I think people that want to burn money, go ahead. I think that's not a recipe. What you see again and again is that the cost of capital goes up, and then those people are or something crazy happens like COVID, and then they're in a problem. So I would say, try to think about real innovation. Try to think about real investment. And I know that you need to sell promises to your investors, but look yourself in the eye and ask yourself, where are you really changing the world? What do you really believe in? Are you there for the exit, or are you there to change the world?
Okay. All right, so now for a heavy tech company, you said you move Agoda from business to tech, right? But you have a pretty large workforce, right? 6,000, to give you the numbers right, 6,600 staff
more than 7,000 today.
7,000 from 90 nationalities, more than 50 office locations, right? So how do you see that changing in 5 years? Are you going to see fewer people?
So I think it depends on the department. So half of them would be customer support, right? And I think and that's the piece, especially when you scale, it becomes very, very costly, and because it just scales with the bookings, no matter what you do. I mean, you can gain efficiencies and automation, but it scales with the booking. I think that's going to be disrupted. I don't know if we need less. I just think we won't have to scale as much as we scale with this. So the efficiencies will be much greater. I think this is an area that will get automated. That's an area, by the way, that if you move it from voice to chat, you can get a lot of efficiencies. So that's an area that will definitely get disrupted, but it's mostly a cost optimization for an organization. Then you have the engineering force. It's slightly more than 2,000 product and engineering people spread between Singapore and Bangkok and India. I actually think, so many people ask me if I think we'll need less engineers. And I actually think we'll need more engineers. I just think that the engineers will do much more. So you can see with all those tools, again, it's efficiency, bottom line type of thing. But I see engineers doing, with the tools that we have now, I don't know, somewhere between 15 to 20% already better, like productivity than they had before. And I think that number will increase a lot.
Right.
So I think the world needs more engineers, but those engineers will be 10x more efficient, and that's 10 years from now.
And fewer salespeople, fewer marketeers, fewer customer service?
It depends. So if you create content, again, repetitive or non-repetitive? No. Salespeople, the people that go and meet other people and create relationships, eventually, but I don't think it's in the next 5 years. Okay. Marketer, it depends. If you do something creative, if you do something, I don't know, you do performance marketing at scale and you need to think, it's not going to go away. But if what you're doing is uploading Excel files to an interface, then yeah, that's probably gone.
Okay. So we have a couple of questions. What's the biggest progress in Agoda compared with last year today?
The biggest progress in Agoda compared to last year. I think we made a huge progress on B2B. Mm-hmm. So I think B2B, when you run a B2C company, then B2B is hard to do because it's always like, B2B and B2C, they don't like one another. Every time you work with a partner, the B2C part is like, why do you need that partner? I mean, you have me, right? So it's very, very hard to do. But I think and one of the things that I'm very proud that we've done in Agoda in the last year is we took B2B. B2B was also spread. We had teams in the US, teams in Asia, and we brought everything together to one business unit with a P&L. Not only that, we gave them all the engineers that they needed, everything. We told the B2C guys, you're not controlling what they do anymore. And I think the moment we started doing that, it's like a flower. Right, so say that you know that we provide services to Citibank. We gave them a white label. We're working with a few more interesting partners, API deals. The moment we gave them independence, we had to define sort of rules of engagement. This is yes, this doesn't make sense that you'll do. But once we define, everybody agrees, and you let them go. It's almost like for the first time I understood the power of. It's not spinning off. We didn't spin them off. We didn't spin them off. We didn't spin them off because they're in the same company, but we gave them freedom and owning their future, and that has been awesome for us. And I see our B2B tech, not only tech, relationship, sales, everything is like growing through the roof.
All right, so you trusted them, gave them the freedom to
give a strong
execute.
leader and let them own everything. Move the discussions from a committee to one person owning that you trust.
Okay, so talk about trust. We have a question about trust. So too many tech leaders have a reputation these days for being part of the problem, right? So how can travel tech leaders be part of the solution towards a better world? Do you think travel tech leaders are the better guys or the evil guys?
I don't think they're evil I don't think travel tech leaders are more good guys or evil guys than any other. We don't say guy, we say folks nowadays.
But how can you be part of the solution for a better world? Since travel is such a huge industry.
I think it's just tiring to see yet another brand that wants to burn $300 million and destroy the industry and get a quick exit. And I just, honestly, I wish it stops. I'm not afraid when the cost of capital is like 5%, but it's a cycle. And the question is what happens when it goes to zero? It may take 5 years when it goes to zero. I'm just really, really hopeful that those VCs, when they give money to people, they will ask the question, what are you bringing other than burning marketing money? Because I just need to think that with $3 billion, you can make a Spooner product. That's the first sentence I'll say to any VC in the audience. And I think we have so many good examples of companies that were super hot. But then reality changes, and like putting predictions on a P&L that you're going to go hockey stick and all your money will come in the next 4 years is easy. Delivering to your prediction, that's hard. So I think tech is about doing something sustainable, and it's not about burning money.
Okay. All right. So we have a question. How does Agoda stay Agoda while booking is so huge? Do you ever get an inferiority complex?
One, I love Booking.com. You can quote me on that. It's such an amazing brand. There are Booking.com people here somewhere. I left my bag there with you. Such an amazing company. Agoda couldn't be Agoda without Booking.com.
All right.
When we were small, Booking taught us everything. And I can tell you that even now, the best conversations I have in travel is with the Booking.com management, James Waters. I mean, when I have a conversation with James Waters, I remember that.
All right. Okay, we're going to end with the human test, so one word answer.
Absolutely.
Right. If Ittai were here, which quality would he say he values most about you?
I'd say leadership.
Leadership, okay. If Idan were here, which quality would he tell you need to improve?
Listening. 100%.
Okay.
And it's like, you're not listening to me. Sorry.
What makes you laugh?
My 7-year-old.
What makes you cry?
My 7-year-old.
What's the book you've read that tells the human story best?
There's a book I bought somewhere in the Smithsonian's in DC. It's called Lend Me Your Ears, I think. It's the top 500 speeches given throughout history, like starting from the speech that where one of the popes is convincing, in the 16th century, convincing people to go to the crusade.
Okay.
You go through that, and it's like it touches the nimbus of your soul.
Lend me your ears. So it plays to your listening quality that you need to improve on. Last question. If you were to meet an alien, what would you tell them about the human story?
That we are hilariously a combination of greatness and stupidity. And I hope greatness prevails.
Greatness and stupidity. Well, Thank you, Omri. Please join me in thanking Omri for joining us on the stage today. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much.